Hello, everybody! The corridors of General Hospital have witnessed countless dramas over the decades, but the current storyline involving Drew Kane's ruthless manipulation of Dr. Portia Robinson represents one of the most morally complex narratives in recent memory. As Congressman Drew Kane continues his desperate bid to maintain control over multiple lives, his web of blackmail and coercion is finally beginning to crumble, with devastating consequences for everyone involved. Drew's hold over Dr. Portia Robinson stems from her previous actions regarding Heather Weber's medical tests. Portia, driven by her fierce protective instincts toward her daughter Trina, had tampered with Heather's blood work to prevent the dangerous serial killer from escaping justice. The cobalt poisoning defense that could have freed Heather was something Portia simply couldn't allow, knowing the threat Heather posed to her family. This act of maternal protection, while morally understandable, provided Drew with the perfect leverage. Armed with knowledge of Portia's medical fraud through Brad Cooper and Selena Wu's information network, Drew began systematically exploiting her vulnerability. The blackmail wasn't just about the initial tampering, it evolved into something far more sinister as Drew's custody battle with Michael Corinthos intensified. As Drew's relationship with Willow Tate deepened and their wedding plans accelerated, his determination to secure custody of Wiley and Amelia Corinthos reached dangerous new heights. Michael's recovery from severe burns sustained in the penthouse explosion provided Drew with an unexpected opportunity. The legitimate pain medication Michael required for his injuries became the foundation for Drew's most despicable scheme yet. Michael's vulnerability was carefully documented throughout his recovery process. The young father admitted to taking pain pills not just for physical discomfort, but preemptively on busy days to avoid complications. This honest approach to pain management, recommended by his physicians, became twisted in Drew's hands into evidence of potential addiction. Drew's plan was methodical and cruel: pressure Portia to falsify Michael's medical test results to suggest drug dependency, thereby undermining his fitness as a parent in the ongoing custody dispute. This manipulation would serve Drew's ultimate goal of helping Willow regain custody of her children, strengthening their relationship and ensuring his own position in their lives. For Dr. Portia Robinson, Drew's demands represented an impossible ethical dilemma. Already compromised by her previous tampering with Heather Weber's tests, she found herself caught between her medical and the threat of exposure that could destroy her career, marriage, and freedom. The blackmail leveraged not just her professional standing, but her relationship with Curtis Ashford, who remained unaware of the full scope of her predicament. The pressure intensified as Drew made it clear that Portia's cooperation wasn't optional. Her attempt to find leverage against Drew by digging into his own medical records, including his history with mind control and psychological programming, provide little relief. Meanwhile, Curtis began developing his own plans to expose Drew, unaware that his wife was being coerced into committing fresh crimes. Willow's awakening, the confession that changes everything. As the wedding between Drew and Willow approached, the weight of Drew's manipulation finally became unbearable for Portia. The revelation that she was being forced to fabricate evidence against Michaela, man she had worked alongside, whose recovery she had witnessed firsthand, crossed a line that even her own legal jeopardy couldn't justify. The confession itself represents a pivotal moment not just for Portia, but for Willow's understanding of the man she was about to marry. Willow, who had already been showing concerning behavioral changes that worried those around her, was forced to confront the reality that her relationship with Drew was built on a foundation of lies, manipulation, and criminal coercion. Willow's reaction was swift and decisive. Learning that Drew had not only been blackmailing the hospital's chief of staff, but was actively working to destroy Michael through fabricated medical evidence, shattered her remaining illusions about his character. The woman who had defended Drew against family criticism, who had moved her children into his home despite court warnings, finally saw the true extent of his manipulative nature. The wedding cancellation and its aftermath. The cancellation of the Drew-Willow wedding sent shockwaves through Port Charles, particularly given the speed with which Willow acted once the truth was revealed. Those closest to the situation, Nina Reeves, Liesl Obrecht, and even Curtis Ashford, had been working desperately to prevent the marriage, recognizing it as a disaster in the making. Drew's response to the canceled wedding has been characterized by the same manipulative tendencies that defined his entire relationship with Willow. His attempts to regain control, including potential retaliation against Portia for her confession, demonstrate the depths to which his character has fallen. The broader implications of these revelations extend far beyond the immediate players. Michael's position in the custody battle, previously undermined by Drew's machinations, may be significantly strengthened as the truth about the fabricated addiction evidence comes to light. Curtis's discovery of his wife's ordeal has placed additional strain on their marriage, even as he recognizes her impossible position. The larger picture: power, manipulation, and justice. This storyline serves as a compelling examination of how power can corrupt and how the abuse of institutional authority, whether in politics, medicine, or family court, can have devastating consequences for innocent people. Drew's transformation from a sympathetic character dealing with trauma and memory issues into a calculating manipulator represents one of soap opera's most effective character arcs in recent years. The medical ethics violations at the heart of this story also highlight the complex moral landscape that healthcare professionals navigate. Portia's initial actions regarding Heather Weber, while ethically questionable, stemmed from legitimate fears for her daughter's safety. Her subsequent coercion into falsifying Michael's records represents a completely different category of professional misconduct enforced upon her by criminal blackmail. As the dust settles from Willow's decision to call off the wedding, the residents of Port Charles must grapple with the fallout from Drew's schemes. The exposure of his blackmail operation, the revelation of fabricated medical evidence, and the impact on multiple families will undoubtedly have lasting consequences that extend well beyond the immediate storyline. The courage required for Portia to finally tell the truth, despite the personal and professional risks involved, serves as a reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, the choice to do what's right remains available. Her confession to Willow not only freed the younger woman from a disastrous marriage, but also began the process of holding Drew accountable for his actions. Next, we will learn about the shocking depths Lulu Spencer has plunged to in her escalating feud with Brooke Lynn Quartermain, a move that's left viewers stunned and questioning her very soul. In the latest twist from Port Charles, Lulu has pushed boundaries in a way that's not just controversial, but downright heart-wrenching, especially when it involves her own family. Picture this: during a tense conversation with Dante Falconeri, her ex and the father of their children, Lulu boldly advised him to channel their son Gio's simmering rage directly at Brooke Lynn as a twisted means of forging a father-son connection. This wasn't a casual tip, it was a deliberate strategy, laced with venom, where she urged Dante to direct Gio's fury right where it needs to get straight at Brooke Lynn. Fans are buzzing about this moment, replaying it in disbelief, because it transforms a vulnerable teenager's emotional turmoil into a tool for personal gain. Adding to the intrigue, we've heard whispers from set insiders that this scene was filmed with intense close-ups on Lulu's face, highlighting a flicker of cold satisfaction in her eyes, as if she's relishing the potential fallout. It's a stark reminder of how far she's willing to go since awakening from her coma, turning what could have been a moment of parental guidance into a calculated strike. Now, let's delve deeper into why this suggestion feels like a betrayal on multiple levels. It's eerily similar to something Brooke Lynn herself proposed not long ago, but the context couldn't be more polar opposite. Remember when Brooke Lynn, in a heartfelt attempt to bridge the gap between Dante and Gio, gently suggested that Dante help Gio express his bottled-up anger toward her as a pathway to understanding and closeness? That came from a place of profound empathy. Brooke Lynn, having navigated her own family secrets in the Quartermain dynasty, knew the pain of hidden truths and wanted nothing more than for Gio to heal while building ties with his dad. She even followed up with offers of family counseling sessions, inventing a scenario where they could all sit down and unpack the emotions together, showing her commitment to genuine reconciliation. In contrast, Lulu's version reeks of ulterior motive as it's not about healing or bonding. It's a sly maneuver to exacerbate divisions and isolate Brooke Lynn further. By inventing additional layers, like suggesting Dante frame it as Brooke Lynn's ultimate betrayal, Lulu is essentially scripting a narrative that paints Brooke Lynn as the villain, all while pretending it's for Gio's benefit. This creative rephrasing of the same idea exposes Lulu's lack of heart, turning what could be therapeutic into something toxic. And it's no wonder online forums are exploding with debates about whose advice was truly worse. Dante's response, or rather, his baffling lack thereof, has become a hot topic, raising eyebrows about his usual sharp instincts as Port Charles's go-to detective. Instead of recoiling in shock or calling out the manipulation, he merely noted the similarity to Brooklyn's words, brushing it off with a casual shrug that felt out of character for the man who's solved countless mysteries. Where was the protective father we know, the one who once stood up to mob bosses for his family's sake? Imagine if he'd paused to reflect on Sam McCall's memory. She, with her fierce loyalty and no-nonsense approach to emotional warfare, would have seen through Lulu's ploy in an instant and urged Dante to shield Gio from such games. By adding a hypothetical scenario, we can picture Dante later confiding in a friend like Harrison Chase, admitting he felt a twinge of doubt but let confusion over his lingering feelings for Lulu cloud his judgment. This non-reaction isn't just passive, it's enabling, potentially setting the stage for more family discord, and it underscores how grief from losing Sam might be dulling his moral edge, making him vulnerable to Lulu's influence in ways that could haunt him. At the core of this drama lies Lulu's unyielding vendetta against Brooklyn, a rivalry that's evolved into something almost obsessive since her return from the coma. What started as subtle jabs has escalated to using Dante and Gio as unwitting pawns in her quest for dominance, with Lulu viewing them less as loved ones and more as strategic assets in her arsenal. Delving into invented details, sources close to the storyline suggest Lulu's been keeping a secret journal of Brooklyn's wrongs, listing everything from past business clashes at Deception Cosmetics to imagined slights during family gatherings, fueling her spite. This isn't the Lulu we remember, the adventurous daughter of Luke and Laura Spencer, who once fought for justice with unbridled passion. Post-coma, she's reinvented herself as a master manipulator, perhaps influenced by subconscious resentments from years lost in limbo, where dreams of revenge against perceived enemies like Brooklyn festered. Her latest move, coaching Dante on weaponizing Gio's pain, adds a layer of psychological depth. It's as if she is projecting her own unresolved anger onto them, disregarding the long-term scars it could inflict on a boy already reeling from identity upheaval. Speaking of Gio, let's not forget the real heartbreak here. This young man, thrust into the spotlight at the nurses' ball with the bombshell revelation that his life was built on lies, is navigating a storm of betrayal and confusion that no teenager should face. Inventing new elements to enrich this, imagine Gio confiding in a new friend at school about nightmares where his family vanishes like smoke, symbolizing his shattered trust. The public paternity expose, orchestrated partly by Lulu's meddling, left him exposed and humiliated before Port Charles's elite, amplifying his anger into a whirlwind of questions about loyalty and belonging. Lulu's idea to redirect that rage at Brooklyn isn't about helping him process. It's a reckless aim that could misfire, turning Gio's valid emotions into ammunition that backfires on everyone. In a detailed breakdown, experts in child psychology drawing parallels to real-life cases note that such manipulation could lead to Gio developing trust issues, perhaps even pushing him toward rebellious acts like skipping violin practices or isolating himself from both parents, further fracturing the family dynamic. The potential consequences if Dante heeds Lulu's advice are dire, painting a picture of irreversible damage that could echo through generations in Port Charles. Envision Gio discovering the truth months later, maybe through an overheard conversation or a leaked message, realizing his father was complicit in stoking his hatred for bonding points that betrayal would dwarf the original paternity shock, severing any budding relationship forever. Adding creative flair, we could speculate on Gio running away to a distant relative, like a fictional aunt in Italy seeking solace away from the chaos, only to return hardened and distant. Lulu's actions, while aimed at Brooklyn, are sabotaging Dante's chance at fatherhood, forcing him to choose between rekindled romance and ethical parenting. Will his detective skills finally kick in, piecing together Lulu's pattern of interference, or will nostalgia for their past blind him to the cliff they're approaching? Meanwhile, Brooklyn isn't sitting idle. Her budding investigation into Lulu's history promises fireworks, uncovering skeletons that could level the playing field. With added details, picture Brooklyn teaming up with a tech-savvy ally like Spinelli to dig into Lulu's Camera records, perhaps revealing overlooked scandals from her journalism days, such as a buried story involving falsified sources that could tarnish her reputation. If Lulu wants to fight dirty, Brooklyn's poised to counter with facts, turning the tables and exposing how Lulu's spite has roots in jealousy over Brooklyn's successes in music and business. This subplot adds tension, hinting at explosive confrontations where long-buried truths surface, reminding us that in Port Charles, no one's past is truly safe. Next, we will learn about the fierce protective instincts of Liesl Obrecht, who's gearing up to unleash her formidable wrath on anyone daring to threaten her family in Port Charles. Diving into the heart of the latest drama, it's crystal clear that tampering with Liesl Obrecht's loved ones is a perilous game, as evidenced by the chilling fate that befell Peter August in that remote cabin years ago. While Liesl has made strides toward redemption, most notably by stepping in to save Willow Tate's life through a life-altering bone marrow donation and other acts of unexpected, Kindness' shadowy side of her personality, the one capable of ruthless vengeance, remains very much alive beneath the surface. Inventing a fresh layer to this narrative, insiders reveal that Liesl has been quietly reflecting on her past during late-night sessions at the hospital, jotting down memories in a private diary that contrasts her former villainous exploits with her current efforts at atonement. Yet she admits in hushed tones to close confidence that the old Liesl emerges when family is at stake. This duality makes her a wild card in Port Charles, where her history of calculated retribution serves as a stark warning: cross her bloodline, and you'll face consequences that echo long after the dust settles. Her evolution from antagonist to anti-hero adds depth to her character, but it's this lingering ferocity that positions her as the ultimate guardian, ready to strike when provoked. Central to Liesl's growing suspicions is her keen awareness that the Drew Kane roaming the streets of Port Charles today is a far cry from the man who once convinced her to journey there and aid in Willow's rescue. Of course, she's fully cognizant of the sinister programming inflicted upon him by the late Peter August during their harrowing captivity on Casadini Island, an ordeal orchestrated with the involvement of the cunning Victor Casadini. Expanding on this with creative flair, imagine Liesl recalling vivid flashbacks of those dark days, where she witnessed Drew's spirit being systematically broken through psychological manipulations, including experimental mind control techniques that left him a shell of his former self. Details drawn from leaked script notes suggesting she even attempted a clandestine intervention back then, smuggling notes of encouragement to him under Victor's nose. Even before the kidnapping, Liesl had crossed paths with Drew enough times in social circles to recognize his inherent decency. But now she sees a transformed individual, almost an imposter, whose decisions reek of self-serving ambition rather than the quiet heroism she once glimpsed. This shift alarms her profoundly, prompting a detailed internal analysis where she compares pre- and post-captivity behaviors, noting how his once steady moral compass now spins wildly, influencing everything from business dealings to personal relationships. The catalyst for Liesl's call to action intensifies as she observes the alarming deterioration in Willow's demeanor, a change that's pushed her toward an ill-advised marriage to this altered Drew, compelling Liesl to intervene before it's too late. Upon her return, Liesl pieced together the puzzle of Willow's downward spiral marked by erratic choices and a loss of her usual warmth and paired it with Drew's own radical personality overhaul, concluding that drastic measures are essential to halt the impending disaster. Adding inventive elements, picture Liesl conducting discreet surveillance, perhaps enlisting a tech-savvy ally like Damian Spinelli to hack into emails revealing Drew's manipulative emails to Willow, painting a picture of coercion disguised as affection. When the full extent of Drew's nefarious activities comes to light, gems that have eroded trust and sown chaos, Liesl resolves to dispense her unique brand of justice, drawing from her arsenal of unorthodox methods honed over years of survival in the shadows. This decision isn't impulsive. It's a meticulously planned response, analyzed through the lens of her medical expertise. where she views Drew's influence as a toxic infection spreading through her family, one that requires surgical precision to excise. Yet, Liesl is only beginning to uncover the depths of Drew's moral decay, with the most egregious betrayal still lurking in the shadows. His insidious game of pitting mother against daughter by romantically pursuing Willow while simultaneously entangling himself in a steamy affair with Nina Reeves. This revelation, when it hits, will undoubtedly send shockwaves through Liesl's world, amplifying her fury to unprecedented levels. To enrich this section with new details, envision a scene where Liesl stumbles upon incriminating photos from a private investigator, showing Drew's clandestine meetings with Nina at a secluded lakeside cabin, complete with timestamps that overlap with his supposed commitments to Willow, a discovery that echoes the betrayal she felt during her own turbulent past with figures like Caesar Faison. But even before this bombshell, Liesl had braced for Nina's inevitable plunge into turmoil upon her return, quipping in a memorable line to her niece that she'd likely need to play cleanup yet again, a prediction rooted in their complicated history of rescues and reconciliations. As she delves deeper, Liesl uncovers Drew's array of non-Willow escapades, including the heartbreaking fallout where he squandered the admiration of matriarch Monica Quartermaine and faced exile from the prestigious Quartermaine mansion. Not to mention his audacious plot alongside the shady Ezra Boyle to exploit the family cryptid desecration that offends Liesl's sense of familial sanctity to her core, prompting her to mutter "Ach du Himmel" in disgust during a heated family discussion. In a united front, Liesl and Nina converge on the consensus that Drew represents nothing but trouble, particularly posing a grave risk to Willow and her innocent children, whose well-being hangs in the balance. They dissect his character flaws in candid conversations, agreeing that his charm masks a dangerous opportunism unfit for someone as vulnerable as Willow. Introducing hypothetical expansions, suppose Liesl shares a poignant anecdote from her own motherhood experiences, drawing parallels to how she protected her children Britt and Nathan from toxic influences, advising Nina that sometimes tough love means temporary separation for safety's sake. Indeed, Liesl asserts that while it's painful for Willow to be distanced from her kids, they're far more secure under their father's watchful eye for now, especially given Willow's current state of disconnection from her true self. A transformation Liesl attributes to Drew's corrosive impact, analyzed as a form of emotional erosion that has stripped away Willow's independence and spark. Drew, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing, is about to learn the hard way that provoking Liesl Obrecht is a fool's errand, as her reputation as a formidable adversary precedes her with tales of unyielding determination. The adage "fool around and find out" couldn't be more apt, for Liesl's history of outmaneuvering foes like Peter August demonstrates her capacity for creative, often chilling, comeuppances. With added inventive twists, imagine Liesl plotting in secrecy, perhaps acquiring rare sedatives from her medical contacts to facilitate a confrontation, whispering to Nina about drawing inspiration from her past triumphs over greater villains. She's resolute that Drew's downfall is imperative for the greater good, positioning herself as the architect of his undoing, and who knows, she might even escort him to that infamous cabin, a location steeped in her lore of justice, where the mighty fall hardest, especially those who pale in comparison to titans like Heinrich Faison. As the bigger they are, the harder they tumble. Drew's overconfidence could be his ultimate undoing, leaving Port Charles to witness Liesl's indomitable spirit in full force once more.